Hey everyone, welcome to the 5 Beer Plan. I'm Brian, and this is the ongoing saga of an everyman's ale trail. In this episode, I continue with summer beer school, start working on my next homebrew project, reel in Frank Estramera from Muskellunge Brewing in the last half of our conversation, and review a refreshing Double IPA from Pulpo Beer Company. But before we get this party started, here is this episode's burning question. What is your favorite Double IPA? One of my highest rated favorites on Untappd is Treehouse Brewing Company's Super Cache Double IPA. It has loads of Strata and Cashmere hops, which give it a great tropical vibe with a subtle exotic citrus bite. A killer brew. All right, my beer-centric students, it's time for the second session of Yeast Feast. Welcome to Yeast 101. In order for us to move forward with this new segment, it is necessary for me to continue to lay the groundwork. Please keep in mind that I am learning right alongside you. As I have mentioned before, there are 4 basic ingredients for making beer: malt, hops, water, and yeast. Without these ingredients, we would not be able to fully enjoy beer as we know it. Through the different segments of homebrew hijinks, I mentioned the term gravity at different stages of the brewing process. Some may say that gravity sucks, but it is essential to understanding the brewing process. So the obvious question is this: what is gravity? Well, more specifically, what is specific gravity in relation to fluids? Harkening back to my engineering fluids days, the official description of specific gravity is this. Specific gravity of a liquid is the ratio of the density of the liquid to the density of water at 4 degrees Celsius. This is equivalent to approximately 39 degrees Fahrenheit. Thus, in brewing, specific gravity is the density of the wort with respect to the density of water. The specific gravity is dependent on the amount of sugars that are dissolved in the wort. The value for the wort is expressed as 1.050 or 1050, for example. In this example, the specific gravity of the wort is 50 points higher than that of water. I will dig into this at a later date, but every malt component used in the mash will provide a certain number of points to the wort. There are online calculators and even programs like Brewer's Friend, which I use for my beer recipes, that automatically provide this information based on the ingredients used. It is very convenient. Finished beer has a higher gravity than water, which is 1.000. Typically, measurements are made pre-boil, post-boil, which is called original gravity, and post-fermentation, called final gravity. I have found in my brewing that especially pre-boil, the specific gravity is essential to ensuring you hit your numbers for the final product. But more on that later. The values of original gravity and finished gravity are important to the brewer because they indicate how much alcohol is in your finished beer. The quick and dirty formula is pretty simple. ABV equals the difference between the original gravity and final gravity multiplied by 131.25. These measurements are made with a tool called a hydrometer. The hydrometer is essential to any brewer, both professional and amateur. I have a triple scale hydrometer that I use, but I also have a tilt hydrometer that goes right into the fermenter. I will also talk about that in a future episode. Temperature of the wort is also important to take into account because the warmer a liquid is, the less accurate the specific gravity reading is. So it is critical to keep an instant read thermometer on hand for the sake of accuracy. Again, there are great online resources out there that will help you. I hope you'll keep tuning in because it's going to be an interesting journey. In this segment of Homebrew Hijinks, it's time to mash in the North Avenue Double. This time around, I tried a different homebrew store to source my grain. It was a little further away, but since it was in a hardware store, I really wanted to check them out. They basically had a double row of shelves near the front of the store with a lot of supplies for both beer and wine making. Unfortunately, they did not have the ability to mill the grain, though they did have a mill for rent, but it was not available. I had read online that if you do not have your own mill, you could crush the grain by using a rolling pin or a hammer. So I thought, why not? The grain bill for this beer was almost twice as large as my other recipes, using a total of 3 pounds of grain. I chose a combination of 2-row, Vienna, Carapils, and Caramunic with a bit of flaked oats for body. As I mentioned, I decided to hand crush the grain. I measured out the proportion of grain needed and got started. I pulled out a couple of heavy-duty gallon Ziploc bags and added a 1/4 pound of grain. With my rolling pin, I crushed the grain until it looked similar to previous brew days. I repeated this process several times until all the grain had been quote-unquote processed. Mental note to self, not an efficient way to spend my brew day. I was sweating heavily, and with the wooden rolling pin I had, I could never really achieve the pressure needed to crack the hull sufficiently. So this mash would take nearly a gallon of water. I measured out the water, heated it to a temperature of 164 degrees Fahrenheit in my pasta pot, and dropped in my brew bag with the crushed grain. I would leave this for 45 minutes and maintain a temperature of 152 degrees Fahrenheit by keeping it covered and warming in my oven. While the grain was steeping, I heated my sparge water to 170 degrees Fahrenheit and then rinsed my grain with another 5½ quarts of water to get a pre-boil volume of approximately 1 3/4 gallons, which is about the maximum my pasta pot can hold. With that much grain, there was a fair amount of water volume lost due to the absorption of such a large grain bill, which I was not expecting. Next time, I'll reveal the hop schedule and boil the wort. Now, it's time for Barstool Banter. Listen in as I cast one last line with Frank Estramera from Muskellunge Brewing in Canton, Ohio, and net some great information about his brewing process, recipe generation, and find out more about his beer interests. What is your favorite part of brewing? Not the
Making the
cleaning.
beer. No, not the cleaning, especially keg cleaning. No, making the beer by itself, planning the beer. I mean, each year had to be adjusted, the adjusting, the tweaking, and then making the beer and the entire process. And then I really love to be a bartender, also interacting with people because I am the brewer, and the fact that I'm the brewer serving beer, the people ask a lot of questions, and so I like that part also. Yeah, but as you said, I don't like cleaning.
I don't think any brewer really does.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it's essential, right? Because if you don't have good cleaning habits and clean equipment, then you're going to have beer that's not going to be good at all.
exactly.
And I think that's something that maybe the average person who comes into your brewery and sits down doesn't realize is that if you have dirty lines, if you have, dirty equipment, then you're going to have beer that's just, I mean, they don't realize the amount of effort goes into preparing for the brew.
Commercially, I think that cleaning is 90% of the business because of the keg cleaning. It's not like cleaning a corny keg. I mean, the commercial kegs, you cannot open them, so you need a special system to clean them and clean the lines, etc. It's home brewing 75, I will say. Commercial brewing is 90%.
Just out of curiosity, because I'm always trying to learn, what kind of a machine or equipment do you have to clean the keg? What is that? How does that work, and what is that called? Is it just a keg cleaner?
Yes, I keg cleaning machine, and again, I also build it myself, so I didn't pay for it. It was more expensive. Even the 100% manual, I just got a cost like a $3,000. You gotta be kidding me! I mean, I can build
Wow.
this. The more expensive part that I have, the pump that cost me $1,000. But the remaining thing, all the piping, all the things, I build it myself. So it's a custom made system. And where I add the caustic, I have a temperature controller, so it maintains my caustic temperature at 160 or whatever I set it up, and then I have the other tank for the sanitation. So basically, I caustic clean and sanitize two kegs at the same time, back to back. So I save time. So instead of cleaning one keg at a time, I clean and sanitize both at the same time. So I save some time there.
Yeah, yeah, great idea. And I think Just going back to what we were talking about earlier on, the fact that you're doing some of your work, the fact that you're creating these spreadsheets for your beer, the fact that you're creating your own equipment. I mean, that's the heart of the craft brewer, being innovative, being creative, thinking outside the box. And I love that. You've got your own custom thing. You save yourself a few dollars, but you've got something that works exactly like you want it to work, and you know it's going to clean, and you know it's going to do exactly what it's been created to do. So I love that. Kudos to you for that as well.
Yeah, not really a few dollars. I also build my own glyco chiller using the AC unit, so that saved a lot of money there. And since in 6 years I have repaired that unit more than 200 times, the beauty is that I know how to fix it because I build it myself. You have a $5,000-6,000 glyco chiller, and then just have a problem, you have to bring a glyco chiller technician, charge you like a $90 an hour or something like that just to fix it. So I mean, I build everything myself.
I love it. See, that's another reason I just needed to talk more with you. I'm learning so much right now. So, do you have any distribution there at Muskellunge?
I don't. I just have a few accounts, just kegs. I have one account at the 35 Bricks in Massillon Road in Green, the city of Green, in Ohio. And then downtown, I have two accounts, one of the leather helmet, and then the 19 hole in downtown Canton. And then I have a four account in Teton Burgers in Alliance. So I only have four accounts, but it's only kegs. There's no cans.
I know you do have some cans available there at the tap room because I picked some up. Do you just can a few up and then put them in the fridge for people to take away?
Yeah, that's the only way you can make real money, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's one of the things that I try to impress upon my listener base and even my friends is that, yeah, you can go to, let's just say, for example, that you did distribute, and I could go to the local grocery store and I could buy some Muskellunge beer from the grocery store. You only get a very, very, very small percentage of that because of all the distribution costs that go into
Oh
that.
yeah.
So from that fact alone, that's why I always like to try to buy beer from the brewery directly because I know that you're getting essentially the most money for that which you've created.
Yep.
So for those that are listening and don't really think about that, I'll be sure to buy directly from your local craft brewery. Along the same lines, Frank, the beer that I had purchased, I had one of these over the weekend, the Deer Creek American Pilsner. Fantastic Pilsner. I love the base of it. I think it's got a great crisp Pilsner kind of hot bite to it, but it also has kind of a graininess to it. And on the can, it said that you actually are brewing this with corn. So can you tell me a little bit about how you do that?
Yeah, so it's real corn, so it's not corn maize. And the story behind that is that as a home brewer, I always wanted to make a cream ale, right? That was my beers that I have on Target. Every time that I use corn maize, I never ever got the flavor profile that I was looking for. So one day I was planning to make my next cream ale. I said, what about if you use corn? So I have like a two old cans of corn in my shelf at home. And I just pour it in the food processor and add to the mash. And that was, we'll say, my mom an epiphany. And then I started using corn, real corn since then. And then when I came here as in a commercial brewery, I decided to keep the same thing because I said, I'm not going to make a barrel of beer with corn maize and then taste like anything. I have been using real corn since then, not only for my cream, also for my American Pilsner, because that kind of the story behind it, right? Somebody told me it's like a urban legend, but I heard for different brewer back in time when I was a home brewer is that they used to add corn to 6 row to give that extra starch to the beer. So I have been using that real corn, so I just pour it and add it straight to the mash, and this is the way that I make that beer.
No, it's got a great taste and it's very unique, like you said. I think that you really get that corn, that grainy, and that's just kind of the feel that I got was it's grainy, not gritty, but just like you get that nice grain taste underneath as a backbone. And it's just, I mean, it's just a great tasting beer. I really enjoyed it. It was a hot summer day and it tasted really, really great after doing some work. So I love that. That's really cool. I don't know
Nice.
if I'd mentioned, I actually have a cream ale that I'm brewing at the moment. So I did that over the weekend. I use the flake maize because I'm only doing a small batch, but I've been thinking about the inspiration that you have with that. And I'm thinking maybe I will try to do corn at some point with one of my beers. I think that will be interesting to try. Per 5 gallons, what kind of ratio of corn to your mash do you usually add?
For the 5 gallon, I use 2 cans. So
Okay.
each can is like a 15.6 ounces. So I would say about 31 ounces per 5 gallons. This is
Hmm.
what I use.
Okay. And do you drain off all the liquid then from the corn as well before you puree it up,
No,
or do
I
you
add everything. So I
everything?
just mash, I just pour everything in a food processor, like a slurry. And then after I add the mash, I add it on top of it and then mix it and let it sit. So that's the way I do it.
Cool. Well, thanks for the hint. As I said, I may try that. I'm always looking for different ideas, and I think that's a really neat one. So, what kind of events or activities do you have there at the brewery?
So I have private events. I have a lot of people that rent the space for events. Actually, I had last week a rehearsal event, and they drink a lot of beer. Actually, it was really good. I mean, yeah, they brought their own food, etc. And I'm quite flexible. They were telling me that I like that because they try their breweries, but the requirements that's a lot of money or something like that. So I say, you're simple. I came here, just pay a fee, and then I can drink all the beer that I want, etc. So yeah, I have a lot of events during the week, during the year here. So, and also have a patio. The patio also helps a lot.
Sure.
We have a lot of people.
So, how many can you seat in the brewery then?
The capacity based on the building department is 69 people.
Okay.
I would say the maximum that I can accommodate here physically is maybe 35, 36. I would say there's a few shelves on the side that people sometimes stand and have a beer, and also have a patio outside. So
Right. So that makes it really nice to have that overflow as well. As long as the weather's not so blazing hot like it's been, right?
yeah, yeah.
Do you have any new and exciting beer releases that are coming up this summer?
So well, it is a returning beer that is attached to my heritage in Puerto Rico. It's called a Pina Colada Goza. That is recently people is just asking me all the time about it because I release it all in summer. There's a very low alcohol content between 4 and 5% ABV, and then it's a nice blend of pineapple and coconut. People just love. So this is one of the next beers I plan to bring during summer. New beers on the pipeline. I plan to bring a Munich Helles. A Munich Helles is one of the beers that I want to bring. And I also have registered a Munich Dunkel that I have been able to brew yet, but I plan to bring it. And then, as part of my expansion, the spirit of doing crazy things, I am going to have an experimental beer permanent. So a permanent experimental beer, and where I'm gonna use crazy ingredients like, let's say I use couscous, or I use certain type of rice, or if I use chickpeas or some crazy blend of the extent that it's starch, and see what it tastes. Novel adjuncts or ingredients. So this is one of the beers I'm gonna have permanent on my tab, on my new tab.
I like that. Plus, it also stretches you as a brewer.
Yeah, and you try new things, right?
Hmm. Well, those beers all sound great. So, do you tend to lean more into the German style of beers that you brew, or do you brew everything across the board?
Well, I'm not into really crazy beers like this brewed IPAs and things like that. I mean, I'm not into that. I'm like an old school brewer. So I just like to brew any spectrum of different old styles of beer. Actually, one of the beers that I'm thinking to make under the experimental label is going to be a Satis, a Viking beer. I have a home brewer that has been making this beer for years, and we're having conversations to see if we can make a 1 barrel Sati here and serve it. So this kind of beers, historical beers, and old school brewing, with the exception of actually a kettle sour beers, because when you start using wild, you just contaminate your equipment. But apart from that, I'll brew any kind of spectrum of old school beers.
Okay. I never did ask earlier, how large of a brewing system do you have there at Muskellunge?
I have a 2 barrel system. The
Okay.
maximum that I can do is 2.5. That's the maximum that I can do.
All right. So with that, you are a very busy guy, especially since you're expanding from 12 taps to 18 taps and you want to keep those
Yes.
full, right?
Yep.
So does that mean that you'll back off from some of the work around the brewery that you have to do and really focus on the beer then? Is that what you're going to have to do?
No, what I have to do is to keep brewing. I mean, right now I'm not brewing every week anyway. So I
Okay.
think I already make an estimate. I say if I have 18 beers on tap and I'm moving my entire 18 barrels each month, I am going to be able to keep up. Especially with technology today, with these new yeasts that they come up with, like a Quebec and Lutra, that you can actually have a beer ready in 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
So yeah, just a matter of keep brewing, having fun.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned those two yeast strains. One of the things I'm going to be doing in the future is exploring various yeast strains on my podcast. And I brewed, I think it was a juniper rye IPA with fake yeast, and that thing was so aggressive. I think it chewed straight for like 3 days, and then it was done. But of course, it left massive amount of trub in the bottom of my fermenter. But I
Yeah.
was just amazed at how compared to like a safe ale 05, just how much more aggressive that yeast was. It's crazy.
In my experience with Quebec also that I'm really impressed is that they start fermenting about 3 hours after you pitch.
Yeah,
To the extent that you have the right temperatures. I brew around 75, 80, nothing more. But man, I mean, it started after 3 hours, bubbling like crazy, and about 3, 4 days max, just ready to go.
yeah. This is one of those things that as a homebrewer I'm thinking about. I brewed with this Kvake yeast, and it really needed to have a 75 to 80 degree temperature to really get it going. I started this cream ale with a safe ale 05, and I basically started it, yes, between 70 and 75. What kind of range of temperatures do you expect to have to use with your yeast? I mean, you said that you usually brew between 75 and 80 degrees. Is that for all of your beers with basically different yeast strains, or is that just only with the Kvake?
No, just a Quebec.
Okay, okay, all right.
SO5, I use a range between 68 and 75.
Yeah,
K97, that is a cold. I use around 60, I will say. I set up my control at 60, and it ferments pretty well. They love high temperatures. So if you want to accelerate the process and you're making a different, like a dark beer with K97, you can bring it up to 70.
yeah, that's one of those areas that I'm still trying to understand, I guess, the chemistry and the science behind that. But it's been fun. I've tried all sorts of different yeast strains thus far. Let's see, what is your favorite style of beer?
My favorite styles are the box. Yeah, since I opened this brewery, I have been making a box fest every year on March. So I have 6 box beers.
Nice.
Um, I wish I could have an ice box, but I can't because in Ohio, liquor control is going to require you to have a distilling license because they said that because you're freezing the beer, that's distillation. So I said that is a no-no. So I'll stay with 6. So I have 6 box. So I just make them every year, let a lager, and then serve it in March.
I think I heard because Bachfest is that in Cincinnati, if I remember right?
Yeah, there's a big box fest in Cincinnati.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that advertised recently and I thought that would be a good to go to because I love a good Bach. I really do. I think it's an underrated style, to be honest.
Yeah.
Do you have any least favorite styles of beer?
Least favorite styles. Actually, there's a few. Let me see. I'm not into a Saison also. I don't know. Saison is kind of weird for me. Hazy IPAs. I'm not into hazies also. I never liked that brewed IPA. I don't know what was the special thing about that beer.
I'm with you there.
So yeah,
Okay. Are there any beers out there that you've always wanted to try, but maybe you've never been able to because it's a regional beer or maybe a seasonal thing?
the beer that I would really like to have a chance to taste out of the tap is Pliny the Elder from Russian River Brewing Company. But that's in California, so that's kind of a ride. So someday, maybe, I don't know, I'm going to be in the area for whatever reason. I'm going to be able to stop by. They only distribute in Philadelphia, supposedly. They don't
Yeah.
distribute around here. So maybe someday, if I am maybe around Philadelphia and Philly, maybe I can find a place that even have it on tap or on bottles.
Yeah. I had a colleague of mine send me some bottles a couple of years ago, and it was every bit as good as what I had expected. But I also feel like, as you mentioned, coming out of the tap, I think that would just be the best. It really would be.
Yeah.
All right, so as we kind of wind down here, I have one last fun question that I ask every person that I interview. If you were a beer, what style would you be and why?
Actually, I will be the top seller beer out of my brewery is the American Pilsner. And the reason is because it's simple, just simple beer, not complicated. And then you cannot hide anything. So basically, it's about being transparent, being honest. So it's like what do you call an honest beer?
Mhm.
Dark beers sometimes doesn't taste right, and then you start adding things just to deal with the off flavors. But in the pilsner, you cannot do that. You mess it up, it is basically done. So the fact that it's completely transparent and honest, I love that beer.
I would agree with you. The longer that I am engaging with the industry, the more and more I realize that the Kolsch, the Pilsner, the Lager, all those beers that brewers make, you can really tell a lot about their process, can tell a lot about their heart in the brewing, really their skill because of that very reason, because you can't hide. As I mentioned, this Deer Creek, it's a really good American Pilsner, so I commend you. Very
Thank
well
you.
executed, and it's great tasting. Well, Frank, I really appreciate you being on the show here. For my listeners, if you're anywhere within stone's throw of the Canton area, be sure to stop in. I think you're open, what, Thursday to Sunday at the moment?
Yeah,
So,
Thursday and Fridays, yeah, from 5 to 10, and Saturdays from noon to 10.
okay. So if you're anywhere within the Canton area, be sure to stop into Muskellunge Brewing. You'll see Frank behind the bar, slinging some suds and bringing some pizza too, coming soon.
Yep, on Thursday, yeah, right now on Thursday only, but hopefully soon every day.
Awesome. Well, Frank, again, I really appreciate your time and look forward to talking with you again down the road.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Frank.
Bye bye.
Last call.
It's nearly time to wrap things up, but first, one more for the road. This episode, I'm drinking La Nueva Orange and Vanilla from Pulpo Beer Company in Willoughby, Ohio. From the brewer, Double IPA infused with vanilla, orange, and tangerine peels. Without further delay, so this is an 8% ABV double IPA that I purchased directly from the tap room. I chose this one because Paula always says her favorite beer is the freshest one, and this was it. It came in one of those nice 32-ounce crowler sizes, which is perfect for enjoying with friends, or in this case, by yourself. So I poured this out into one of my favorite Hefeweizen glasses, actually. It came from Griffin Claw. It just has a nice feel and look to it. When I poured it out into the glass, it poured a nice pale amber color. It had a light foamy head that dissipated fairly quickly. So on the nose, what I'm getting is a lot of orange and a little bit of vanilla. So I get almost kind of a creamsicle vibe going on with this particular beer. One of those aromas and profiles that I just really, really dig. So first sip impression. Okay. So this is maybe a little bit more of a traditional leaning double IPA. It has a nice malty backbone to it. So when you first take a sip, you get a lot of that nice malt character. And then as you finish it, as it finishes off over the top of your tongue and goes back into your throat, you start to get that citrusy flavor. So I'm getting orange, definitely some tangerine peel in there, because it's got a little bit of that drying effect on the finish. It's just so good. So when I look at this, it's also a pretty clear beer. I can see through it, although it is a little bit on the opaque side. I think John did a fantastic job with this beer. Gosh, there just isn't a whole lot of frills in this. It has a nice balanced hop bitterness to it. The beer also has kind of a light to medium bodied mouthfeel. But I just really dig that aroma. That orange and that vanilla just takes me back to summertime and creamsicles. I think this is one of those beers that if you weren't really careful, you could really have one or two of these and not realize it. But at 8%, it certainly isn't going to be one of those summertime crushable beers, but it certainly is refreshing on this summer day. I'm going to give this one a very high 3.5 tasters out of 5 on the flight board. Cheers, Pulpo Beer Company, and it was great to meet you all there at the tap room a few weeks ago. Well, if you've got a beer you'd like me to drink and describe, leave a comment below. If you're a brewer and have one in mind, direct message me on Instagram and let's see what we can do. That's all for this episode of the 5 Beer Plan. With so many podcasts out there, thanks for choosing to listen to mine. Join me next time as I continue to lay the groundwork for yeast, chat with the very talented M. Sauter of Pints and Panels, and review another beer. Remember to hit the subscribe button on your preferred podcast platform to be notified of new episodes. Follow me on Instagram as well, 5 Beer Plan 2022, to see what is happening on my personal ale trail. I'd love to hear from you, and there are several ways you may do so. Leave a comment for this episode on Spotify, direct message me on Instagram, or email me directly, 5beerplan@frontier.com. Be sure to support your local breweries, choose your beers wisely, and drink them responsibly. Until next time, keep walking your ale trail, and stay thirsty, my friends. For inspiration and hydration, I am usually drinking a beer while writing, recording, and editing the podcast. So this episode, I wanted to give a shout out to Leverone Lagers and Ales for sending me a great example of a Cascadian dark ale called Chrysanthemum's Axe. The label has a picture of a Wookiee wearing a lumberjack's hat. So fun. This beer pours jet black and has a wonderful, fluffy, mocha-colored head that sticks around. Citrus-forward nose. Creamy, dark chocolate notes on the palate with an earthy and mildly bitter hop finish. 4 tasters on the flight board for me. Cheers, Mark, and thanks for the share.